could bullying really pay off? According to a 5-decade-long study, children who display aggressive behaviour, such as bullying or temper outbursts, are likely to earn more in middle age. Well, I'm joined by the psychotherapist and broadcaster Lucy Beresford to look into this further. Lucy, thank you for joining me. This is fascinating to say that bullies earn more. I hate bullies, and I've certainly been bullied in the past, as I'm sure many people have. We all know there are people probably in every workplace who are too aggressive. Tell me what you think of this study.
Well, I wasn't surprised by the findings. When I'm asked to comment on workplace issues, or I'm asked to describe things that are happening in an organisation, for example, I often revert to the language of the playground, because what often gets played out amongst adults is something that's really recognisable from what happens when children are younger. And that's because we're very primitive creatures. We have very base instincts, and most of society is designed to try to smooth a lot of those baser instincts out. But when you've got classrooms the size that we have them, it's very hard to clamp down on bullying. And of course, social media has really amplified the ways in which bullying can be perpetuated. So it's no surprise that actually, because bullying isn't really stamped out in schools, that you actually see it happening within the workplace. And very unfortunately, those very skills that will see you rise to the top, being very assertive, being full of very big self-belief, although a lot of bullies are actually very insecure, but they mask that with a veneer of self-belief. Those are the traits that will actually do you well in the long run in the workplace. And if doing well is about being promoted and having a great remuneration package, stands to reason that if you have those traits, you're going to be well rewarded.
So bullying pays, quite literally.
What I don't know is whether it's going to continue like that, because it's very interesting that this study stopped in 2016. It was a very detailed study, as you say, over 5 decades, which is brilliant. But I've already noticed that the world of work is changing, and the tolerance levels that, for example, Generation Z have for practices within the workplace, which one might perhaps characterise as being on the bullying side. I think there's a generation coming up behind us who are not going to tolerate certain things. We already see that there's a lot of resistance to actually being in the workplace in general, and that has been ridiculed. For example, they've been described as the snowflake generation, unable to deal with the workplace. Well, maybe what's happening is that they're voting with their feet, and they're saying some of this behaviour that takes place within the workplace is shameful, and I don't want to have any part of it.
Although some of that, of course, is to do with dynamics in regard to how many vacancies there are in the country, and the fact that sometimes that generation can actually move a job if they're not happy. There's so many employers I talk to all the time who say, well, someone won't even apply for a job unless they're allowed to work from home, for example. A whole other debate. But I just want to put something to you, Lucy, that has been sent to me on WhatsApp. Actually, you can WhatsApp to this station, 0344 499 1000. It's from Mary in County Down. She says, the fact that bullies thrive and flourish in their careers is not surprising. Employers only pay lip service to anti-bullying dignity at work policies, but they actually do nothing to stamp out a culture of bullying. Perversely, they value bullies because they sometimes get things done. That's part of it as well, isn't it? A lot of managers just want an easy life and are afraid to do the thing that's in their title, manage.
And also the remuneration structure in a lot of workplaces tends to favour people who are very assertive, people who perhaps have different boundaries to the rest of us, people who are those with the power, the ones in control. But again, I do wonder how long that's actually going to last. You mentioned there that you got a WhatsApp. That's a new-ish form of communication, and it has hitherto meant that bosses can be in touch with their underlings 24/7, but people are starting to push back on that. People are beginning to say, no, I need to set boundaries.
They've changed the law in France, haven't they, Lucy?
In the workplace culture. And I think that's going to change. I think the bully might be on the way out, but unfortunately, it still lives right now.
They've actually changed the law in France in regard to times where people can actually be contacted as employees. I wonder if there are parents watching, perhaps, and your kid, you know, the dreaded letter comes from the school or email and says, you got to come in because your kid has been bullying someone else, a child. I mean, that would fill me with horror, although I'm not a parent. But maybe parents will say, well, actually, maybe they're just standing up for themselves. Maybe they're just being assertive, and those are the skills you need for life. And maybe this is less to worry about than other things because they'll earn more money, as this study suggests.
To be fair, that's partly what the report actually goes on to say. I think there has been an attempt to portray this finding as something positive, that actually we're almost in danger of losing the word about being a bully. Because we're translating it into something more positive around being assertive and having the courage of your convictions. And for sure, we want to raise confident and very boundaried children. We want them to go into life in general, not just the workplace, but to have a sense of who they are and to not be trampled on by other people. But you also want to make sure that they're not doing that at the expense of others. And I think if you are a parent and you are going to get that kind of letter, it is still something that you need to talk to your children about, because ultimately having perhaps a psychopathology about not really caring what other people might think of you and always imagining that you're the right one and you have the power, that isn't ultimately the way to live. You might end up in your mid-40s with a fantastic career and great remuneration, but you'll have no friends and no one will like you.
No one will like you. Lucy, thank you very much indeed. That's Lucy Beresford, who's a psychotherapist